but glad that it ends up working. So welcome to Belong Be Become's monthly Facebook Live, where I try to share wellness tips and tricks and different approaches to health and well-being. So I'm very excited and honoured tonight to have Miya Spears with us, who's a great teacher, mentor and friend of mine. And so Miya, welcome Miya. I'll say welcome first.
Welcome, thank you.
Thanks so much for coming on.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Good. So a little bit about Miya. Miya is a senior yoga teacher. She is also a yoga therapist and an Ayurvedic lifestyle consultant. So she's going to explain a little bit about herself first and then go into what Ayurveda is, the benefits of Ayurveda and how we can use that as a really innovative and effective approach to our own health and well-being. So Miya, do you want to explain a little bit about your background with yoga, Ayurveda, and what you're doing at the moment?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Lani. So for those of you tuning in, Lani and I both met when we were teaching in the yoga studio a few years back. COVID has changed things quite a fair bit, but the yoga has certainly stayed around. So I've been teaching yoga coming on 10 years this year, which is a bit of a milestone and like, yes, hit that, there's no long service leave, sadly. But,
but you made it to a decade. That's more than a lot of people can say.
Yeah, so it's been, even though it's been 10 years, I still definitely feel like a student of yoga. But yeah, I started yoga when I was in high school as a teenager, kind of to complement a different sport that I was doing at the time, and then the yoga stayed. And so I've been teaching since my early 20s, but the way I teach now has certainly evolved over the years, and now I really like to have a more tailored yoga therapy kind of approach to it. So I truly believe that it doesn't matter what size or shape or medical history or family history or what demographic you are, wherever you're from, that yoga should be accessible in some shape or form. And most people do have hesitation to practicing yoga based on, health concerns that they might have, or that's a little bit intimidating because, let's face it, there has been some yoga hasn't had the best PR over the decades. But I do honestly think that the traditions of yoga should be kept. And I like to teach on very sort of one-on-one kind of approach to try and make sure that the person that I'm with is practicing in a way that is safe and accessible for them, but also so that they can find it a complete holistic way of life, right? Because yoga is a bit different to other forms of exercise. There's a lot more going on mentally, spiritually, emotionally. Threw a lot there.
With you there. Yeah. No, perfect. That's great. Like, I think we've had very similar experiences with yoga and definitely like similar insights. You've been teaching and practicing a lot longer than I have. So very much want to hear a lot more about what you have to say. But yes, since Ayurveda is the main topic tonight, because it's a really something that I learned a little bit about in the different courses that I did when I studied yoga. But you're actually a lifestyle consultant in Ayurvedic, in the traditional medicine system of India. So can you put in very simple terms what Ayurveda is and what it means?
Yeah, sure. So Ayurveda, it's an ancient Indian style of health and well-being. And in India now, there's I think there's 90,000 Ayurvedic doctors that do their training every year in India alone. So the way that, think of it like the Power Rangers, right? Like there's the idea is that we're all made up of different elements: earth, wind, fire, water, and not heart like the Power Rangers, but ether. right?
Vata.
Space.
Yeah.
So these 5 elements which we're made up of, and if you think from a physiological point of view, you know, the water that we're made up of is the same as the water of the oceans and the rain, right? It'll all cycle through eventually. The bones that we have, the muscles that we have, we're built up biologically from parts of these elements. We require the elements in order to be a live, living, breathing species on this planet. So the Ayurvedic medicine looks at, okay, so we're made up of these 5 different elements, and these 5 different elements are usually grouped into 3 different types. There's the dosha, the pitta, and the kapha. So these 3 types are made up of 2 predominant elements, and these 3 dosha types generally create 3 different types of a body that we can assess, right? So looking at people's physical constitution, you can get a little bit of a guess, but then once you start to understand who they are, what their likes are, what their dislikes are, what really sort of rocks their boat, what really kind of upsets them, what food groups are good, what food groups irritate them, then you can look a little bit more closely at who this person is on a elemental point of view. Now, if we consider that we are made up of these elements, there's always an imbalance that happens as well, right? So if we're completely balanced with our elements, then everything's good. We're sleeping well, we're having happy, sexy lives, we're, passing food through the body well, no issue. If there is a disharmony, though, then we start to see a few different issues, whether that be physiological or psychological. So it's about balancing those elements out for the individual.
That was such a great explanation, and like something that actually makes sense. Like so much of this can be seen in a really just like a fluffy way, for lack of a better word, that it doesn't really have much science behind it when it is a science, right? Yeah. And it's from, what I've gone out and sought out and tried to look at my own approach for wellness. It's the most holistic thing, I think, out there. Or one of them. I'm sure there's many other things, but yeah, it makes sense to me, definitely. And I guess I want to know as well, like what resonates mostly with you? Is it that it's a very holistic approach to wellness, or that it's acknowledging that we're made up of more than just the body, and it's not just about food or yoga? Like what personally do you connect with about Ayurveda?
Look, when I first, it's funny that you say wishy-washy, because when I first heard about Ayurveda, it was certainly in my very, very, very early teaching days. And it was almost kind of like a horoscope. It's like, oh, which Ayurvedic dosha am I, right? Yeah. Oh, these are the food groups that I should eat. But aside from that, there wasn't a lot. But what I really love about Ayurveda is that you begin to understand the person as a whole. Not just, so from a yoga teaching point of view, it's quite handy to have a student who, you could meet them and look at their physical body the way that it is, but it might not be their body might not be in their healthiest form, right? So let's say, for instance, weight gain or weight loss. They're pretty obvious telltale signs. If you have somebody that you've met and they've suddenly put on a lot of weight, or they've suddenly lost a lot of weight versus when you met them years ago. Now, when you begin to look at it from an Ayurvedic point of view, you can, we live in such a culture now where it's just like, oh, well, here, take this pill, try this pill, right? The pharmaceutical world dominates. But when you look at, okay, well, where is there an imbalance? Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's, a divorce that's on the horizon. Maybe it's a redundancy that's just happened. Maybe it's the hidden stresses of not feeling up to being a parent or a mother. There's so many different hidden stresses, and the cost of these hidden stresses put such an impact on us. And this isn't just, in Ayurvedic science. There's a lot of modern doctors now. Gabor Mate is one that I highly recommend if anyone is interested in this. who addresses these hidden stresses and the relationship they have with a lot of physiological problems like cancer, like autoimmune disease, MS, things like that. So yeah, it's that looking at the whole individual, what's happening in life for them, what's happened in their childhood.
Yes.
That I
and
find
not just
really...
like diagnosing, actually looking at what triggers can influence and exacerbate certain behaviors that we're drawn to. So like I know myself as a Pitta, a very fiery person, I know that I shouldn't be drinking a lot of coffee or a lot of alcohol because it's something that dehydrates me and dries me out. I should be having more cucumbers and more watermelon and stuff like that.
Yes.
So I really like that approach too.
And even, sorry to interrupt, but career-wise, like as a Pitta person, you would not do well as an accountant, let's say, right? You would not do well as in a role that requires you to sit still and focus on managerial tasks that are not a challenge, right? Pitta people generally like to, be up and about and doing things.
So maybe, Miya, you can finish what you're saying.
No, that's it. Otherwise I'll go on.
Yeah, so just for people that don't know much about Ayurveda and when we're saying things like Pitta and Kapha and all this, maybe you could just explain what the three dominant body types are, and then the sort of people, not the sort of people, but like certain personality traits that might fit into these doshes.
Sure. So let's start with Pitta. Pitta is made up of fire predominantly, fire and air, fire and ether or space, right? But fire is the main element there. Your typical Pitta person is usually, of a medium build, quite strong in stature, can be quite commanding. Think Obama, right? Obama is a classic Pitta type of person. Usually a lot of red hair is also a Pitta element. People that get hot very quickly, if you sweat a lot very easily, if you like to, be on top and have a managerial style, but also like to have, a lot of fingers in a lot of different pies, right? That's your sort of general Pitta personality type. And in terms of the physical, they're usually strong, fit, able body people that require movement, right? They don't like to have anything too sedentary. So that's your Pitta. And then you have your Vata, which is predominantly air and ether. So I'm fairly Vata. Vata people tend to be a fairly slimmer in stature, and there's a lot of air element there, which makes them also a bit of an airhead sometimes, right? They can be a little bit fluffy. They
a little
can
bit kind of lost in the clouds.
Big dreamers, usually fairly dainty in terms of their physical limbs, right? So fingers and toes. Keira Knightley is a good example of a Vata person. You can imagine the wind blowing and she blows off and tie her back down. So Pitta people, they tend to have this floatiness about them. They usually do need a little bit of groundedness though. So there's that. And then finally you have the Kapha. The Kapha people have usually much softer, rounder features. I'm not saying, weight gain necessarily, but, softer, curlier hair, rounder eyes, gentler demeanors. They make very good mothers. They make very good nurses. They're nurturers. They make good managers because they are quite compassionate. Oprah Winfrey, good Kapha example. So they're your three sort of types. And when everything's in harmony, everything's going well. But as I mentioned, if you're out of whack, so if a fire person has too much earth or water, for instance, or if an earth person has too much fire, or if an air person has too much water or fire, right? These create disturbances, and it can be from gastrointestinal issues, it can be headaches, migraines, menstrual issues, you name it, the whole shebang.
Yeah. Wow. There's so much to think about, right?
There is. There's a
Yeah.
lot to unpack when you start
Yeah.
to look at the Ayurvedic type of people.
Yeah, and because you gave such great explanations of all of them, but I'm thinking particularly in the early childhood setting, there'd be quite a lot of educators that are Pitta dominant, because we have to be assertive, we have to be constantly on the lookout and on edge most of the time to make sure that we're like on top of children's safety and sticking to a rhythm. But also like a typical Kapha as well, so really motherly and nurturing and knows how to sort of be really present with children. I don't know so much about vata, like people who would have a vata constitution. I mean, possibly, but I do remember also hearing that there are certain stages in your life that you might sort of embrace or embody different doshas. So when you were saying like someone like yourself, like a vata who's maybe a bit more dreamy and things like that, like children are very much like that for at least the first 7 years of their life. And working in the Steiner education system, he says that children are still somewhere between the earth and the cosmos, and they're quite often in dreamland, and they don't really make sense in their play to us anyway, because they're kind of they're just so enveloped in the ether. And I think that's actually really I think you're kind of blessed being a vata, because you still have that childlike experience of the world.
Well, even children will display, in their behaviors. I mean, I don't work with children in the same capacity, but, I'm sure there are some children that are a little bit more quiet and happy, like reading and drawing and being on, and they're a little bit shy to, come out and play versus you've got some kids that are just like, whereas everyone like, listen to me kind of thing. So they do display their constitution fairly early on as well, whether it's Pitta or Vata or Kapha. But you're right in the sense that they're still exploring their surroundings, and they're still exploring their place in the world. So there's absolutely a sense of more ether in that, like their spatial awareness, their who they are, with what their place is in the world is. I mean, it's that classic case that the drawings that kids do, they've got big heads and tiny hands and feet, right? Because they think like this is the world, and still figuring out their proportions to the world around them. But
very true. Oh, you got some good insights about kids. You'd be a really good educator.
I do like kids. I also, like handing them back at the end of the day.
That's right. We all secretly do. Cool. You've given us so much. We've pretty much covered everything as like a very, basic but also really wholesome introduction to Ayurveda. I guess now, like if someone were to come and see you or wanted to learn more, individualistically, I don't know if that's a word, privately, okay? So say someone wants to come and see you, how would you assess them? What would be some questions you would ask them? What would be some practices or some techniques that you would give someone who, for example, someone who's a Pitta, right? I'm just using myself because I'm familiar with myself, right? So what's something that you would go through in an assessment?
So it's quite comprehensive. The way that I run my sessions, the first initial consultation is quite thorough. So there's a full questionnaire that I would go through with my student or client or whoever it is that I'm seeing, which covers everything from your age, your medical history, but also your parents' medical history, your height, what was your ideal weight as a child, what do you do for work, what are your strengths at work, what are your weaknesses, what are your sort of drives, what are the things that you sort of pull away from. Then I also have a look at the physical body type as well. So I assess what's going on based on the eyes, but also in the tongue. The tongue has so much insight on an individual. So I look at the tongue, and then usually, so my Ayurvedic stuff, I weave it into a yoga therapy. It's like a yoga therapy Ayurvedic consult, right? Mm-hmm. So after I get all the sort of info about the person, and we look at the physical, and then we do a little bit of movement. We usually do a little bit of asana, depending on whether they've ever practiced or not. We keep it light. Moving through the body. And also, this is a good chance for anyone to address what is happening physically, right? So a Pitta person might come and say, yeah, I'm just doing yoga because, the missus told me to, or whatever. Oh, but I've also got this real bum hip or this knee. And, where the stress, like we always have stress in the body, and there's a lot of stress that's quite good for us, but where untreated stress goes to, it starts to eat away at certain parts of the body. And that could be, a physical stress that you've had through, let's say, too much golf or something, or there could be emotional stresses there as well. So working then on a physiological and pairing, okay, what do I know about the person based on all the info they've given me? What do I see in the person? And usually there's bits in between that you got to find,
fill in the gaps,
and fill in the gaps, right? To give an example, I had a student recently who was complaining quite a fair bit about hip problems, and seeing the way she moved and asking her a couple of questions, it sounded like there might have been something going on in her thoracic spine as well, so the middle part of the back, right? She said, no, don't have any issues there. I'm like, okay, cool. But a few weeks later, she came, she's like, I've had an x-ray. My thoracic is so stuck, it doesn't move. I'm like, aha.
Oh my God.
Your tongue already said that, and the way that you moved already said that. Now we're getting somewhere. Well, let's address it. So, where the things move are usually a little bit, there's always clues somewhere.
And that's why we sort of definitely, but we kind of need each other that way, right? Like, I mean, you can do so much assessment on yourself, and you can do a quiz and find out what your body type is, but sometimes it just takes someone to look at you from the outside, and you can just give them all the information just by standing in front of them. So I'm also thinking, okay, say an educator comes to you, right? And they're, quite often we're physically and emotionally burnt out. Like, there's no lie about that. We often are in child-sized chairs every day, or we're sitting on the floor, or holding children, or we're picking things up. Like, we're not in the most favorable of positions during the day. So what would be, I guess, like a technique or something that you would suggest, not like a cure, but say someone who's, emotionally burnt out, physically just feeling it everywhere, maybe finding it difficult to sleep, doesn't have much of a rhythm to their life. What would be some practices that could help manage that, or at least provide a little bit of stability to get through all of the other stuff that we can't really control?
Totally. Depending on their constitution, it would be a different prescription, for want of a better word. Let's say a Pitta person who has a lot of fire and, running around, checking, keeping an eye on all the kids, what that's doing is, if you imagine, a person that's got fire, they're running on more fire in order to get through that, right? So they're like literally adrenaline, lighting the candle at both ends kind of thing. They need something a lot more grounding, right? So for them, something, a yin style of practice, a restorative style of practice, they are going to be the techniques that are going to really balance out what's happening for that individual. If that individual went and did a power class or a hot yoga class, hot yoga is good too, but like a very sort of heated class, chances are they're just going to keep adding to that flame, right? So they need to do something to balance out that heat and that flame by doing something a lot more calming and earthy. Okay. Now, on the other end, an earthy person will have to do something a bit more upbeat. Maybe a nice brisk walk in the evening, get the fire up, lift. They would still like to have their groundedness, but again, it depends on imbalance. I'm just assuming this is imbalance here. If that Kapha person is feeling very burnt out, they might be better off doing something a little more uplifting.
Okay. So what if yoga wasn't really someone's thing? And for a Pitta person, I mean, Yin and Restorative is something that we're familiar with because we're yoga teachers. Yeah. So for those that don't know, a Yin class is something that's the opposite of what a regular Vinyasa yoga class would be, which is where you're sort of holding very restorative poses like twists, maybe putting like a cushion or a bolster under your back and just kind of lying with your feet together and your knees out wide. Yeah, but maybe if you've got any other ideas on what some restorative practices would be other than yoga. Yeah. I mean,
I think we really underestimate doing what we love, right? And I think we have this terrible habit now of I'll just have one piece of cake, like it just, doing the things that fill your cup are really important. I wish I could say that there was some magical prescription, but it's really one of those KISS methods, right? Keep it simple, stupid sort of methods, where it's like bring it back to what that person really enjoys. And I think if you're someone who is very Pitta, it's going to be hard to get grounded, right? A Pitta person who has no interest in yoga, if you get them to do a Yin or a restorative class, it's going to be quite a challenge, right? To the point where it might be more Pitta inducing. But, sit in the spa with a glass of wine. What is going to make you slow down?
Yeah.
What is going to, that's different for everybody. I'm not opposed to, enjoying a light little wine, or a gin and tonic at the end of the day, whatever. But winding it down and being deliberate. There's a lot of magic that happens when you turn off your phone too.
Very true. Very true.
Unplug, turn off, charge it in the other room. Settle. Yoga doesn't have to be asana. Yoga can be a good book. It can be a nap. It can be, having a romantic cuddle on the couch, watching The West Wing. I don't know. Versus, doing something. If you are feeling like you're only doing work, you've got to add fun. You've got to add fun.
I find even so I did a Facebook Live last month about sleep and how we prepare and permit ourselves to sleep. And I really try and do that every night. So like at least half an hour before bed, I'll like dim the lights in my room and I'll even play soft music. So I find maybe even Pitta people, they're more inclined to sort of be on the go all the time, maybe just having soft background music and burning some incense and actually setting the tone to tell your body it's time to come down now. Yeah. I think that's what so many of us today find so hard to do is we actually don't have an on and off switch. We're a whole being. Like we wake when the sun rises and then we start to slowly get more and more energized and then we're fully awake by lunchtime and then we start to wind down. It's not like we're on and off.
Exactly.
So that bit in between, how are we approaching life in the in-betweens?
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, Lonnie, because ritual is one of the pillars of Ayurveda as well. Forming good rituals. Whether that is dimming the lights and playing soft music, whether that is giving yourself a foot rub at the end of the day, or walking the dog.
Yeah, that's actually a big part of Ayurveda as well, right? Get a self massage.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can use like any kind of oil. Yeah, sorry, you go.
No, I was just going to say it stimulates the elements. There's different oils that are recommended for different constitutions. Different essential oils and whatnot. But self-massage, huge. Having a hug is, a form of massage, having a nice
embrace. Yeah. I think that like one of the best parts of our job as educators is having so much affection. Yeah. Because we need it just as much as they do.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
The cuddles are everything.
And embrace it because it's a beautiful thing to share. And there's so much physiologically that's happening with a cuddle. For for the nervous system. So
definitely. So that's even another great way, like you're saying, basically you're alluding to that part of that calming down process for someone who's on the go all the time, just having a cuddle. Even you can just cuddle yourself.
That's it. As long as there's weight on the chest somewhere. I mean, you can, cuddle a pillow. I mean, that's
totally
yoga, right? Well, but sit on the couch, cuddle a pillow, or weighted blankets.
Totally. My friend actually bought me a squishmallow for my birthday. I don't know if you know them.
I don't even know what a squishmallow is.
So it's this giant thing. I can actually put my arms around it like this. So it feels like you're actually got your arm around someone in the bed, because it's this big, they're meant to be like marshmallows, but they're called squishmallows. So you squish them, but they're so like squishable.
Oh, wow.
It is so therapeutic and healing, and it's soothing. It's self-soothing.
Yeah.
Anyone, squishmallow, soft music, incense, cuddles. There are so many things.
Absolutely. The world is your oyster. Be guilt-free.
Yeah.
Live your best life. I know that's so cliche, but
it's true. And I think that's why, I really like I like your approach to life in general. And I think that's why we connect really well, because we know that things aren't meant to be rigid. And even when you do know what your dosha is, what your body type is, it doesn't mean you have to, you're not exclusive to living this particular way. It's just insights, and there's suggestions, and there's little, little changes that you can make if you want to feel like a more balanced and better version of yourself.
Exactly. And what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
It doesn't work. Change it up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, is there anything else that you want to add? What's a great way for someone to find out their dosha?
Oh, there's an online test. It's like back in the 90s. It's like, what Spice Girl are you? Or like whatever. Like there's so many online tests that you can do. If you just Google, what's my dosha, they all ask pretty much similar questions. Try to be honest when you're doing one.
Well, that's the most important thing. I'm glad you said that, because sometimes we don't like to answer some questions that they ask. I was very it was a bit confronting when I first did mine.
Yeah, we generally
results.
Exactly. They're all beautiful, right? I'm just trying to find the one that I normally recommend.
Well, I've just found mine too, so I'm going to put that in the comments. And if you find another one, you can also put that in the comments.
Okay. I don't know how to do
that. I hope that works. I just put it in chat, and if that doesn't work at the end,
okay. Yeah. Oh, Bio Botanicals. Yeah, I've used that.
Oh, is that the one you use?
I have used that one. Any of them, they're all gonna give you, roughly the same questions. But and that'll give you a quick snapshot, and then call me.
Well, that would be the next thing. So you're still in the midst of getting your website and everything together, even though you've been doing this for a very long time. She's by no means like a novice at what she does. She's just very humble. So maybe
it's
if you
want
in
me.
She's just floating, the procrastinator, just getting distracted by a butterfly or something.
Exactly.
But if you would like to, Miya, maybe put your I don't know, is it Instagram that you'd like people to follow you on?
Instagram's probably the most direct way for now anyway. Can I just give you my Instagram handle? I don't know how.
Put it on the chat.
Okay,
whatever your name is, and then we can
okay, I'll just I'll do that. And just send a DM. That's what all the cool kids do. Yes,
they really do. Like I said, even if you had a website, I'm sure that they'd be like, the website.
I know.
Instagram,
Snapchat, TikTok, my way through it.
Oh yeah, that can be your next endeavor, Ayurveda on TikTok.
Can it be done? I don't know.
Oh, they never say that it can't these days, honestly.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll wrap it up. But thank you so much for your time, Miya, and for your amazing insights and all your wisdom. And I feel really, really lucky that I just know you in general. I think you're a great human being. and it's been
Oh,
it's and by the way, Miya has helped me a lot. Everyone is watching out there with my concept and my website and everything. She's a woman of all trades. So yeah, just big thanks, big virtual hugs, and
oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much. It's an honor to chat with you. Let's do it again.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, we'll do something else. We'll figure out another topic to talk about. I'm sure we wouldn't get off this thing if we didn't have to.
Yeah, totally.
All right, Miya. Thanks again. Have a great night.
Thanks
everyone for joining.
Thanks,
and,
everyone.
Yeah, don't forget to look Miya up on Instagram and follow her journey.
Yay! Let's do
it. All right. Well, have a good night and peace out. Namaste.
Namaste. Bye.
Bye.